Welcome back to Mastermind. Question 1.
Here we are. Morning, everyone. Hi.
Ladies and gentlemen, the chairman of EMI, the head of Petty Cash, Mark Poston. Please make him welcome. Firstly, I'm just disconcerted that the jelly beans are out of reach. It's just like a stunt bowl of I'm just going to move that.
Much better.
That's better. They're still just tantalising out of reach. Now, Mark, can you explain for us, for anyone that doesn't know what a chairman is, what do you actually do as chairman of EMI?
Maybe head of Petty Cash is actually a better title. We should run with that. But look, everyone, some companies love titles, but really chairman's another word for kind of managing director. So I guess I run EMI Australia and New Zealand. I have a team of about 70 in Australia and 11 in New Zealand. And I guess I'm the fall guy. I'm kind of responsible to make sure that we are successful, not only kind of commercially, but also creatively, and making sure, I think as my staff know, that it's not a dirty word to say that we need to make money, because we need to make money so that we can invest in other new talent and in local artists. So I guess it's all those things. All the departments report into me, and I guess more broadly, I'm trying to make sure that I'm doing the legacy of all that great stuff that you introed and that you just saw then, doing proud. So, yeah.
In my experience, you seem to be one of the more kind of approachable and personable heads of a record label. Not to diss any other label, but even the way you're dressed, you have a much more relatable, I suppose, personality. Is that something you think that's important and kind of identifiable specifically to EMI as a label that can relate to its artists?
Yeah, I think it's hugely important, and thank you for saying that. But yeah, I think that as some of you know in the room, every label, going back through history, it's kind of had its own kind of style. But kind of what happens in life, usually the guy at the top or the lady at the top puts their own kind of stamp on things. So for me, I guess one of my kind of driving forces is that it's all about the artist. So for me, and I think for EMI, I hope if I do something well, I instill it in my team, is that the artists are the most important thing. And I guess I've seen some behaviours and been in some moments in my career where it's been quite the reverse, and I guess I think that like anywhere in life, right, I actually channel the negative things as much as the positive things, and I guess the little guy that was back in the suburbs working in the record store goes, if you ever got that job, then don't you ever behave like that. And so I hope that people think it's about creativity and it's about artistry before it's about some of the other shit that goes on.
Yeah, well, as you say, it can be viewed, I suppose, and my experience is that in some labels, everything's viewed as units. Whether it's ringtones or tickets or whatever, and other things, is much more about the creative process. Let's take it back maybe 10 years or so to when you were 15.
No, my dad is in the audience, so yeah.
Is it your 45-year-old dad? That's good. Nice to see you, Alan. Thanks for coming along. To your very first gig, which was, whether it fits into the genre of working in the music business, I suppose it could. Tell us a bit about your first job.
All right, well, probably most people in this room, probably almost 100%, I guess I was driven by the same stuff as you. I mean, to me, from as early as I can remember, music was like everything to me. It was just my thing, kind of like when I was growing up, I would, religiously, jump to the radio, the top 40. I think I probably scrawled my band names all over, cassette boxes or whatever I had. My parents graciously indulged me in Everything Stopped in our house for Countdown. Probably even the repeat as well, just to get another fix. And I think I remember even having a tape recorder that I would put up to the TV. And of course, Molly, it's like, oh my God, Molly, who's he talking to this week? David Bowie or Boy George? Or
just for the record, in this era of piracy, that's illegal.
Yes.
It doesn't matter how you do it.
Jabba.
That's illegal. So if we can just bring the federal police in, because we've just captured that on tape. This is on tape. Someone's been holding the tape recorder up.
Oh, we should. It's over now already. But you know, I loved it, and I never thought that I would, you know, actually get to do the things that I've got to do. You know, like all dads should, and probably, to be honest, because I ended up spending most of my money on, you know, riding down to the shops and buying a, you know, 7-inch record for 50 cents or $1, whatever it was. It's like, well, I think that you need to get a job, son. So my first job was at Kmart. Any kind of former Kmart, Target employees in the house? No? Yeah? You got to start somewhere, right? But really what I always wanted, of course, was that there was a brushes store, which was just, you know, a 1-minute walk from Kmart. Or I would have actually taken the music section at Kmart.
Yep.
But, man, you knew that it was happening at brushes. That's where, you know, all the new stuff was on day one. You didn't have to wait 3 days for it like it was at Kmart or whatever. I knew these things.
So the Kmart gig wasn't actually in the music department. It was just at Kmart.
It was, yeah.
And it led from there somewhere more specific for you.
Yeah, and I think, you know, I got met someone, or, you know, was word of mouth, and a job came up at Brushes, and, you know, within a few months I had a job there, which I have to say it was like Christmas, you know, as anyone can imagine. Like, working in a record store, what could be better? You're surrounded, you know, all day by like boxes of new stuff arriving, and, you know, like vinyl and tapes and CDs, and there's, you know, stuff to learn about, and, you know, music pumping out all the time, and just like the charts, and, you know, I guess it actually, I'm really grateful for it, because it helped me, you know, if you've worked in one, you know what I mean. It helped me learn a lot about different other tastes in music. And, you know, just by the sake of playing something, when it came in, it kind of gave you more education in music. And I guess it also, kind of somewhere started to sink in, oh, what happens to make a sale, you know? Like having it racked at the front of the store. I have to say, even though I guess that's a core part of what we do, still the charts thing gets me, because I just used to have, you know, some teenagers or, you know, ladies who just come in and go, can I have number 7 and number 9 and number 11 on cassette single, almost like without regard for what the music is. But, you know, I guess I learned all that kind of stuff, and I started to make some contacts, and I guess it was probably starting to resonate here that's probably what I really wanted to do, right? But I kept going. I was much to my dad's disgust at the time, I had like 3 months to go of an arts degree, and I'll never forget it, right? I just had one of those moments, a life moment, where I woke up one morning, I looked over at my alarm clock, it was like 8:01, and my brain said, Mike, you've got to do everything you can to get this job, to get a job in music. And you know what? If you don't get it and it doesn't happen fast, it's okay, because you probably, you know, I guess I would have gone on to, you know, teach or work in arts or some kind of work in media. And I guess I was lucky and hungry and determined, and within a couple of weeks I had a job at Sony, and, you know, I guess that's where my kind of formal career in labels started.
You were out in the burbs of Melbourne at that time.
Yeah.
How does a guy from the burbs of Melbourne, from Brushes, get a gig at Sony?
I don't know. Look, I guess for some of the people who were like me, who I know are in the room, because I've been you in this room as well. It's just, it sounds like crap, but you have to believe in yourself. You have to just push, use contacts, call the phone, chase emails, and that's what I did. I just sent letters. The people that I knew, I got them to try and follow it up. I think I called once or twice every day, and just kind of probably was a little bit of luck and the door opening as well, and got an interview and got my gig. And
you obviously had contacts from the record store?
Yeah, but, you know, to be honest, like Werribee, you know, suburban stores of western suburbs, and knowing what I know now, you know, so I was kind of relying on one rep who wasn't the city rep or wasn't the main guy. Right. But yeah, so, you know, I guess I was a little bit of luck, but you got to be determined and you got to make your own luck as well.
And so when you landed at Sony, what was your role there?
Oh my God. So I thought I thought Brashes was like, my like dream of like walking in and having a store full of like music to absorb. But working at a label for me, I think I remember, saying it to my mates when I go home or whatever. It's just like, okay, well, my life is over. This just does not get any better. There's like walls of unreleased EPKs and files of every B-side and 12 inches and promo photographs and, artists coming through the office all the time. I just was like, okay, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And kind of quickly after that, kind of moved through a whole bunch of roles. I looked after DJs for a while. I looked after all the indie stores for a while, and moved into promotions and marketing after that at BMG. But it was great, and some, I guess it was pre-internet and all those things. We had this. I have to tell you, this one of the craziest things I remember, particularly from Sony, but I have to say all record companies were guilty of it, and retail was involved in it too. Was this thing called like chart attack, right? Which even when you were a retail store, Friday was the day where the record reps would have to come out if you're a chart store and basically try and influence you / bribe you to give more sales to their kind of priorities that week on the chart. Which was a completely insane proposition, right? So when I was at Brashes, it'd be like, okay, so the rep would come in on Friday and be like, okay, Simply Red Stars, we were looking for a top 10 album this week. Here's like tacky box of, chocolate stars with Simply Red Stars on the front. Or, Melissa Etheridge, bring me some water. Here comes, rep with like a 6-pack of Perrier water with like Melissa Etheridge sticker on.
And that was to give away to customers?
There's
or that
the
was
idea, because it was pre-internet and, let's face it, it's dodgy, but you had a list where you filled out the chart and you put the sales on. So the idea was that you kind of bumped it up to help them get the chart. I guess,
the Perrier was basically payola. Here's some water.
Yeah.
And just dodge the numbers in the form.
Yeah, totally. But, just a hilarious concept. And, I have to say that the industry, thank God, has come a long way. And that stuff did all stop by the end of the 90s. And it is actually, trust me, because I've looked into it with my guys, it actually really, really is, almost impossible to rig the chart. And I think that that's a really good thing, thank God.
Yeah. I love that those two examples stuck out in your mind, Simply Red and Melissa Etheridge.
Totally, they're crazy ones.
Now I know why I've heard so much of them on the radio. Thanks to that box of chocolates.
Sorry about that.
So where do you want to go now? From the chart attack stuff. So you're obviously working at Sony. They're kind of examples of you being at Brashes and people coming in and saying, rig the chart. Did you then, in your role at Sony, go into stores and say, look, I really need a big result here on, Tina Arena or, whatever you were kind of pushing at the time?
I did. And because I was, young and naive, and as you kind of gather, like, oh my God, it's my, I've made it. I've got my foot in the door at Sony. I have one particularly embarrassing moment where I actually dressed up as Forrest Gump and went around to the chart stores in the suburbs with a box of chocolates, and you guessed it, went up to, the chart girl or the chart guy and went, life's a box of chocolates, and handed over that box of chocolates for that chart, because, hey, I was, all in for that. It's just like my gig. These, but at the same time, got to do some crazy stuff with them, a little kind of being Alice Cooper's bouncer and holding his python around his neck before he went on stage and taking it when he got off, and Silverchair were just starting, and I remember taking them to McDonald's, which is kind of a ridiculous concept. I think the EP had just gone #1 at the time, and
well, that's not the ridiculous concept to me. The ridiculous concept is that Daniel Johns is a vegan.
Yeah, totally. I think that started.
What do you have, McNuggets?
Yeah, we're just telling some of the funny stories. But yeah, it was great. Those things are all, I guess those things are all. I was green and naive, and thankfully, the industry's grown up a lot, and things have kind of changed a lot.
But they're also the special moments, you know. It's I've just recently started getting photos with people because I realise I look back at all the stuff I did with Channel V and with Nova, and I never once said, hey, can I get a photo with you? And I regret, you know, all these great, you know, Marilyn Manson, you know, sitting there with Marilyn Manson. I'm like, how do I not have a photo of that? You know, people probably going, who's Marilyn Manson? But, you know, and so when I saw Steve Earle out the front of the hotel, I got a photo with him.
Amazing.
You know, there was food in his beard. I didn't want to tell him, but that's cool. I've got the photo. It's on Twitter. And, you know, to me, that's what makes you a standout, you know, person in this business, is that it isn't just about the business, it is about those experiences, because as a music fan, that's where you cherish going and someone play, you know, you go see a band, they play your favourite song, or they throw the pick out in the audience and, you know, you get it. Where did you kind of go from there? From holding Alice Cooper's snake, you must have known that you were climbing the ranks.
Yeah, I was climbing the ranks,
music
baby.
business.
I got a sales gig at BMG, which is great, and you know, stayed with them and moved into promotions, and that was really great because it's a whole different mindset. You're dealing with media and plugging radio and looking after TV. I probably spent a lot of my Saturdays at Hey Hey It's Saturday, and got to, you know, had one of my like, oh my God, no, it really doesn't get any better than this. Ended up looking after Molly, which, as you can imagine, is quite a handful and still is quite a handful. That would be, you know, like, okay, he'd call, you know, someone would call, would be in Chicago on a trip, you know, for him to go and interview Whitney or, you know, Usher or whoever it was, and Molly's lost his passport. Scramble, you know, pre-mobile phones, trying to make things kind of happen. Does anyone want to know where Molly is? All that kind of stuff. But, you know, absolute, you know, dream to look after those kinds of things. And looking after acts at TV was, you know, a whole different dynamic, and learning how radio programming worked, and you know, making sure that, I guess, trying to make the connection on what lines up as sales. So between kind of what I knew from a sales base to what I was learning with promotions, and then, you know, after that, the next thing I got to do with was marketing, which, you know, was really, really great. I guess all those things, you know, I think you're really lucky in your career if you can work your way up, because you actually, you know, have a greater understanding of all the things that lead to success and how to handle failure as well, you know.
Absolutely. If we can go back just for a moment, so when we're talking about the kid on the couch and everything in the house stops to watch Molly on Countdown, and you're recording the show, and then you're interacting with him, you're influencing someone that had an enormous influence on I guess the chart at the time, because it's I think it's, you know, possibly difficult to imagine now, but a show like Hey Hey It's Saturday, and, you know, follow-on shows like Rove, you know, in its heyday, really did. Can you explain for us how influential shows like that and that type of exposure were for musical acts in Australia?
Huge, right? I mean, for some of the younger people in the audience, I guess you got to remember that this was pre-internet, so that, you know,
pre-24-hour music channels.
Yeah, totally. So like those moments were gold, and I guess, you know, because people were all tuned into, you know, one kind of media and tuned into that TV show, it just became, you know, the golden moment where you'd literally the next morning, you know, the record would be on fire and was selling and moving up the charts. And, you know, as you probably heard, you know, Molly just helped so many artists, particularly Aussie artists, and, you know, even is responsible for, you know, people like Madonna having their first #1, and, you know, I think Duran too. They're just, you know, and a bunch of other newer acts just starting their career in Australia and things taking off from there. So those moments were really, really precious, and, you know, and really influential. And you know, I don't know. I think that we miss some of that stuff to a degree, but at the same time, I think it's great, and it's such an exciting time because all the channels are open and everyone's got access, and that's no bad thing as well.
And there must have been a personal moment for you, like holding Alice Cooper's snake, to go from being the kid on the couch to, you know, to interacting with Molly, to develop a relationship with him over the years, where, you know, that, to me, that kind of sets the scene for the fact that so much of life is about relationships. You know, that's a relationship presumably, you know, it's just gotten better and better over time.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I guess that all that stuff, you know, I guess that some of that stuff was starting to resonate with me, that the things that I was about was actually more, you know, yes, the industry's about relationships and, you know, and with media and with artists and with your business, but also that, I mean, the stuff for me, right, the thing that kind of drives me, and I think the thing that kind of drives us and what people think about EMI is that, I say, we're about art, not chart. And I think that we need more of that more than ever. It's really dangerous for people, and I think for music companies and for artists, because I was speaking about this with Ricky Lee last week and actually with Alex from Mercy last night, is that I like to think that we're trying to build careers and work with artists and develop talent rather than just having one shot, and if the record doesn't work and you don't have a chart success, then you're kind of out on your ear. You got me going now. I guess, I think that around that time, because we're talking late 90s, early 2000s as well, for me, I guess kind of one of my kind of formative times, or one of my formative kind of moments about this stuff is that I really didn't like what started to happen in pop culture, in the shift of it kind of ending as we knew it, and this kind of cycle of people wanting to be famous for the sake of fame's sake without having the talent to back it up. Mm-hmm. And, as much as, well, I guess there might be a guilty pleasure for some people, I think the whole reality TV phenomenon was something that, it just really kind of messed things up. And I guess it kind of, hopefully when people think about EMI and what we're trying to do is say that we're trying to build careers and we're going to stick with artists and, and nurture talent. And it's not about just getting up and, belting out a karaoke version of a song. It's about artistry and songwriting and craft. And you know what? If a record doesn't work so well, on the first hit, then we're going to kind of stick with you and, create a plan and try and build a career with you, not just a kind of one hit.
It's fascinating that you would say that that it's dangerous to put the sales result ahead of what the content is. When I guess other businessmen would say that it's dangerous to care so much about the art and not focus on the results. Do you think that is that you guys are a bit of an anomaly in the game because of that?
Totally. Maybe it's one of our points of difference, but it's not that we don't run a really, really smart business. And you'd be kind of hopefully impressed if you came into some of our meetings at the level of analysis and the level of data that we have to use now. And, probably you get it. And actually how hard artists have to work now. That's just changed so much, even if you think about the last 5 years. That stuff has all changed a lot. But I think that if you want to work in music, like probably some of these people do, and like I did, you gotta trust that. You gotta trust the stuff that is the music and the craft. And if you are, if you're not letting that kind of run its course and not trusting that process and not trusting artists, then you shouldn't be doing it. And it's dangerous to try and measure things on one kind of hit. I was having a conversation with someone last night I hadn't seen for a while, and it's just like he's just like, you've got to be looking for you've got to be looking for a holistic view, particularly when you're working with artists, of what's going to happen, not just in it to squeeze out exactly what you can at the front and then throw it away. Particularly because I think that in Australian music, we have, and in the arts, because that's why we're all here, right? Like, I know that you all get the stuff that I do. It's just like the music, when a music and a song and an artist is like a special thing. You can't, I'm in love with that idea of what a song does. You can be having the shittiest day and you can hear a song and it totally can change your mood and flip things for you. It can turn up a loud rock song and just make everything better and deal with whatever you're going through. And music can be the soundtrack and it saves and all those things, right? And we have to be nurturing Australian artists and artists in general. And I guess that's one of the things I hope that people say that we're trying to fight for. And I don't know where I'm going with that end bit there, but I was on a rant.
Yeah, it's good. I like the rant.
You like that?
Ranting's good. I wanted to jump to your start with EMI. We kind of, you know, the last thing there, I suppose, in the timeline we're talking about is the end of your time at the end of the 90s, and I suppose, you know, what I would call the Big Brother phenomenon, and people famous not for being well known for what they do, but just being well known, full stop. You started with EMI in 2000. How did that come about?
I was actually really, really nervous to go for I got tapped up for a job interview, and I was actually so nervous because EMI was always my favourite record label, and, you know, all of the legacy that you talked about was there. So I was like, actually, you know, I was like, well, I hope this works out, because I would really hate if I went to work for them and, you know, it was a disappointment, and, you know, they were terrible at what they did, and they were a bunch of arseholes. Thankfully, they weren't, and I had, you know, when you in your career and in your working life, you want to have great mentors. So I was really lucky that a guy called Tony Harlow was the MD of the company at that time, and then I was really fortunate that a guy called John O'Donnell took over from him a couple of years later. And, you know, those people, you know, I always think another tip for, you know, if there's any people who wanted to get in, it's just like, you got to surround yourself with people who are smarter than you and have a different point of view, because all those things, even if you don't realise it straight away, all those things come back and kind of, you know, come back and help you along your path in a career. So John and Tony were really great music guys, and you know, I hope I kind of learnt some of the great things from them and carried me through into my career. So it was a good time. There's lots of great music stuff going on, everything from the Spice Girls stuff to working with Silverchair and Paul Mac, and working with them with Jet. So it was really great Australian artist stuff, you know, and really kind of great to kind of learn the craft of how hard you have to work for, particularly with local artists, to have the kind of success that some is pointed out up there.
Yeah. I mean, the early 2000s are a great time for a lot of genres of music, you know, particularly rock. One of the things I just want to touch on there was the notion of surrounding yourself with people smarter than yourself. I think one of the keys there is to be able to listen to them, because a lot of organisations surround themselves with smart people and then ignore the advice. And I think that key with listening is something, obviously, that you do to appreciate music. You know, you're kind of either really listening to music or it's just, you know, kind of in the background. The early 2000s was a good time for rock, with bands like the Vines and Jet and something like that. Watching that reel before and remembering Jet blowing up with that song and being the soundtrack to the first iPod, is that something in your business where you hear a song like that? I mean, I would think anyone would hear a song like that and go, fuck, that's going to be massive. But when you're, you know, working in the label that's going to put that song out, what kind of feeling is there when you hear a song like that for the first time?
Jet was a really exciting time, because, you know what, it was they were really hot, and it was kind of one of the most ridiculous Jet moments was in Sydney, when they were being courted by pretty much every major label in the world, and there was a bunch of American and UK hacks who were kind of, you know, in the Annandale. And if you've been to the Annandale in Sydney, you kind of know how crazy that situation is. And, you know, unfortunately, stereotypically, a bunch of them would just like head down in their BlackBerry or whatever it was for most of the gig, looking up. But there was this kind of excitement and tension that was starting to happen for the band. But I guess, you know, no one ever thought that they would go on to, you know, sell that many, you know, have that kind of success, be great for Aussie music, that they, you know, had sold records or platinum records pretty much every part of the world. Yeah, it was those things are great. And I like when we were looking at that reel, when we were making it, I think it's really great that there's such diverse talent comes out of here. I mean, kind of even fast forwarding a bit, it like jumps from like Jet into, you know, Casey making her incredible kind of, you know, country, you know, kind of stuff, and then all of a sudden the scene changes, and it can, you know, be Emperor of the Sun, and you've got Luke Steele dressing up as a Chinese emperor with his kind of Balearic Fleetwood Mackie kind of beats, and then, you know, a year later it's, you know, about Mumford and Sons and Angus and Julia, you know, going completely the other direction in a brother and sister folk duo, and then we're back in rock. And, you know, I think we were saying to each other before, I think it'd be great if there's a hip-hop record that could win Album of the Year. Not that it's about ARIA Awards It's not. It's about careers. But it's nice, you know, like the doors are more open than they've ever been before. And, you know, we're saying for presets, which was just around the time of Empire of the Sun, that was actually the first time that an Australian dance album had won Album of the Year.
Yeah. Which
is, you know, kind of amazing, but kind of exciting too. You know, if maybe hip hop can come through, and who knows what it's going to be, you know, after that. It's just like great because it's open, and you never know how the market's going to move next. And, you know, and the market is more fickle than it's kind of ever been. It's harder to have. So I'm talking about trying to build a career at a time when it's harder than ever to build a career, because people don't seem to kind of have the kind of stick with a band or stick with an artist into a second record or a fifth record like they used to. So you just kind of have to get, you know, try and be smarter and try and be cleverer and try and reinvent the wheel every time when you're creating the campaign for the record. And also a bit of psychology sometimes with the artist too, to just kind of, you know, remind them that if they're in it for a career, then every great artist has records that don't work and don't connect so well. And that's, you know, all part of the craft. But
yeah,
well, I guess maybe, you know, some of you would be hopefully impressed / shocked too that some of the shift that I've seen in my time is that, you know, particularly with the relationships that we have with our managers and with our artists, is that we have to be more, I feel like we need to be, or I drive our team to be more transparent with them than ever before, if they want to go there on, you know, on the budgets and on, you know, how the profit and loss is working, and what's the data on how their fan bases are growing and where their sales are at, because, you know, this is like, you know, it has to be a collaboration, and if they want to know that stuff, then we'll kind of tell it to them. And I think that we are careful to try and not put our artists in a position where, you know, we've spent so much money that they're starting to look really vulnerable, and that there might be a situation where we need to kind of end our relationship because the whole thing is just in the red so much.
Yeah.
So, you know, I guess part of the craft of what we do is trying to find that balance between, you know, so like art versus commerce. Like, I think the job of a good record label is to try and get that balance right and kind of be somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to take it over here more and believe and back yourself and spend some money, or take a risk and, you know, go out with a song that no one was thinking of, or those things. And sometimes, you know, you just have to know when to kind of stop and, you know, and slow things down and maybe start to work on the next project and move things on that way.
There's also obviously a, you know, pardon me, one of the challenges for anyone working in the music, you know, industry or business at the moment is not just the longevity of careers or coming up with hits or, you know, having artists that, you know, produce great music, but it's convincing audiences to pay for that music.
Yeah.
Which is something maybe we can touch on in just a second. I just want to kind of finish off your timeline of your time in the early 2000s with EMI. There was the renaissance of Australian music, Jet, The Vines, The Living End, some great bands, you know, some great times. You then packed your bags and went to London.
Yeah, I did. I was lucky enough to get tapped up for a job to go and work in London head office, which, you know, was great and, you know, amazing. And I went to a lot of gigs. I travelled a lot, and I tried to kind of learn as much. And, you know, the UK market is so great because it's so fast moving and it's so fickle, and it's so exciting that, you know, I guess I was just trying to soak and learn from that as much as I could. And for any, you know, I always say to people, if you get an opportunity to kind of travel and go and work in another market, really do it. There's kind of, you know, two things to that. All the things that I just said to you, you just learn things from being in another market. You get to see what are the triggers that makes a sale, what the live scene is, how the market works. But also that, you know, when you're in another market, it's just, there's something also that is kind of helpful when you get back. I don't know why it is. Maybe it's something built in the psyche. You can be like, oh, you worked in London, or, you know, you got to work in America, whatever it is, and it seems to bode well. So, you know, I was lucky. It bode well for me, and, you know, I made sure that I kept working hard, and I was lucky enough that the kind of planets aligned, and I got this job offer to come back and run the EMI company here. So,
were there things that you learned about the EMI culture in the UK that you were able to implement in Australia?
That's a good question. Yeah, look, going back to that thing of sometimes you kind of the negative things or the things that you don't like so much, actually come back and channel them and use them to your advantage in what you're doing next. So I was kind of shocked that the UK company in some ways didn't work. I didn't feel didn't work as hard or be as passionate as I knew that the Aussie company was. But I have to say that was probably because I was working in head office, and head offices are traditionally kind of, a little bit different, a little bit kind of stiffer, and, more kind of focused on, more kind of focused on kind of high level and kind of running the business. But I guess what it did teach me is that I like to kind of build things and like to be involved and be with artists. And I really kind of missed that because, I wasn't kind of in an operating company and part of the process of kind of building things.
So it was probably a relief to return to Australia to be asked to run EMI Australia.
Yeah, hey, it was amazing, and I guess God, I was absolutely crapping myself. I have to tell you, when I first got that gig. And
that seems to be a popular theme of yours with each new job, is which I suppose is universal for any of us, is going into a new situation.
Yeah, look, I guess I'm just wired that it's like, wow, this is such an absolute honour to kind of carry this stuff on, that I'm just like, okay, well, you better step up and make this work and give it your all, and kind of do the music god proud. I know that sounds a really fun thing to say, right? But
well, when the Beatles said they were bigger than Jesus, I thought, what does that say about their record label? Now we know. The music gods. And if you look at the acts that are on EMI now compared to back in the Jet and the Vines and that more kind of traditional Aussie pub rock scene, I think the industry as a whole, but obviously the label, there doesn't seem to be any kind of snootiness about, that's, Ricky Lee, that's not what we do. 360, that's not what we do. There is an embracing culture about just about music and about, there's not a genre that you do. You do music.
Yeah, it's true. We just want artists who are the real deal and who have something to say and want to have a career and have a point of view. That's really kind of our template. We're kind of wide open. But yeah, I think most of you, because you're all music heads, know that it's been a really turbulent time for EMI. I came back and we were taken over by a private equity firm, which, as you can imagine, was really kind of difficult to deal with. And then we were taken over by Citigroup, and we're actually just about to merge with Universal. But I kind of think adversity sometimes can be a kind of blessing. So I guess, and some of my guys are in the room, I guess I just thought, right, how are we gonna move through this situation? We've just been taken over by a bank. Our artists are concerned, the staff are really kind of rattled, and like, I'm the new guy. It's like, you're really kind of like taking this challenge on, Poston. But, I have great people and great staff, and I guess I just leveraged, all my kind of people skills and everything that I'd learnt, and the power of relationships, and, we kind of have, I think, almost become like the fighters of just going, you know what, we've got a job to do, we've got to look after all these artists, we're going to keep signing artists, and we're going to keep building Australian careers as a core of what we do, because, the music universe kind of needs that. I mean, the industry kind of needs that. So, they were kind of, I guess it sounds kind of dumb to say, but I guess we're just like, right, what are some easy things that we can do that just, make sure that we talk in the talk and, and walk in the walk about what we believed about our artists. So, even like today, we're having our conference, and we've got the whole staff here so that everyone can be lost in music for 3 days, be learning stuff, be working during the days, and then be out at night supporting our artists and hopefully, turning onto some new band that they like, or the ARIA Awards, which is, you know, the moment for the artists and the moment when Australian artists can be recognised. We won't have a Christmas party, but we'll take all the staff to the ARIA Awards, so they're all invested in that and they all can be there for our artist family. You know, the office, it took my CFO and I longer than we'd like, but we needed to move the office because we needed to have an office that said that, you know, that exuded that we were creative, that we had a future, that we believed in music. So you walk into our office, you got, you know, artists showing their work at the front of the office facing Flinders Street. You got record labels, you got gold records from the Beatles or Pink Floyd. You walk in, you feel like, okay, there's a sense of trust about the music here, and it like exudes an energy. And, you know, we're close to the artists, and we're close to where the artists stay, and we're close to a lot of the places where the gigs are. I mean, they sound funny to say out loud, but they're just kind of simple things that helped us kind of get through to make sure that we were, you know, I guess I'm saying this, right, because another thing that I really, really feel, and I guess I kind of challenged and channeled into what we've done, is that record labels got a really bad name somewhere in kind of the last kind of 5 years or so. And you know what? I'm happy to say probably some of them deserved it, but I guess I think that record labels, whether you're a major or a little indie starting up, or just more broadly, if you're trying to work in music, that guess what? I know that the people who work at EMI, we don't sit around swanning around and wasting money and, you know, living the high life. We work really hard. Some people work 12, 14 hours a day. I'm not saying that to make you feel sorry for us. We have a great privilege and it's our job to do the job that we do. But, you know, record labels are great because they invest in talent. And, you know, it's okay to make money because you need money to invest in the next Silverchair or the next Casey Chambers or, you know, the next Empire of the Sun. And I feel really strongly that, you know, what I'd like to see happen is more of a shift from the government and more of a shift, you know, maybe more like what New Zealand has, where there's more of a consciousness that how important art is in the community, and not just kind of music artists, but, you know, whether it's sculpture or painting or, you know, people, we want, as a society, we should want to have, and we should be nurturing artists. Artists are great, you know, they kind of contribute to the world, they see the world differently to us, they make us appreciate the world differently. And without it, life's pretty boring. And what's happened, and what really concerns me about this shift that we've got going on, particularly with the young people, making myself sound really old, is that there is a whole process that goes on, and that artists should be able to be paid for making art. They deserve to make a living, and they've got to eat, and they deserve to have a good life for making art. It's what they do. It's what they're born to do mostly. And it troubles the hell out of me, and I'm sure that some of you see it, maybe some of you even do it. I'm not here to judge, but, you know, if it's you rip TV or rip film for free, well, guess what? There was a script writer, and there's a makeup artist, and there's a producer and a director and editor, and they put, you know, all of their heart and soul into making that art. Or if there's music, there's, you know, a producer and a technician and album players, and there's beautiful album cover and art and lyrics. And, you know, there seems to be no regard or less regard for all those kind of things. So, you know, one of my like dreams, Jabba, is that we try and make a shift by doing that. And I guess even if it's only in a little way, I hope that when people think about EMI, or when they kind of walk in or have something to do with us, they feel like, you know, they're fighting the good fight, they're for real, they mean what they say, and, you know, they're trying to push things forward and, you know, say record companies aren't dead, music's great, artists are great, and, you know, we've all got to work together. And I guess, you know, that's kind of like why we're all here at Big Sound actually as well. Yeah. It's something absolutely. A lot of people might end up talking about in between bands every night for the next, you know, couple of days. Yeah, absolutely. We got heavy there, didn't we? Sorry. Well, it's, you know, it is kind of heavy. You know, people talk about the record business being in demise. You know, for I guess a lot of people in the room would not have seen the EMI office. I think office is a very misleading term because it is much more like an art gallery. You know, and I think it's a very, you know, certainly different thing to David Brent's office. You know.
sadly, because that was a great office. It's a completely different culture, and I think, you know, it's a culture. You know, it's not a business, it's a culture. It's something about culture. It's, you know, it's someone that dropped out of an arts degree, you know, can understand. And you know, and on a harder kind of tack, I would say to you, as you know, the idea of getting stuff for free when it wasn't made for free, there's an ideology that goes with that. Wouldn't it be great if everyone paid for it? That's not the case. So as the chairman of a record label looking after a roster of artists, what else can you do to create a revenue stream for the people that look to you for protection? Because, you know, that's such a challenging area of the game, I suppose.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you know,
is that something that is part of, you know, the future business plan of someone like EMI to go?
Of course, absolutely.
How do we all keep our jobs?
Yep. Yeah.
If people are going to be thinking that this is all free.
Yep. You know, because as a consequence to all of that's going on, we had, you know, had to change our deals. At EMI, we try and only ask for a piece of the pie when we can deliver on it. You know, we've done some deals where we get a share of live income. You know, we try and get a share of merchandise income if that's something that's on the cards. More of the kind of magic puzzle of what makes a success or what makes a sale these days are things like syncs. You know, some of them can work spectacularly well and kind of spiral and springboard the success of a song or an artist.
What's a sync for the uninitiated?
Like a TV sync, you know, it's like 360. We've got one on Home and Away at the moment. Missy Higgins recently had a really successful one. It sent a single, Crazy, or it might even be a spot in a movie, but it tends to be TV that seem to be the more successful ones.
Yeah. Where
a TV ad's synced with a piece of music. But one of the more interesting ways that we work is what our brands department do, and I guess they do act like an agency, in that, you know, they kind of try and match up our artists with brands. Mm-hmm. And try and make it fit so that the artist makes money and the record label makes some money, and hopefully that collaboration actually leads to helping the album or the single or the career move forward. But I guess that's been an interesting shift, and, you know, we're not in the business of asking Luke Steele to, you know, to
endorse American Express.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You need to be sensitive to the artist process and sensitive to the artistry and try and match that up. So we do kind of approach it like a brand agency where, you know, we talk to the agency and see if there's a suitable kind of fit. We kind of know which things not even to kind of take to the artist.
Yeah.
And then we take, a kind of educated view on whether it's going to work, and the artist has the right to kind of say yes or no. Yeah. Those kinds of things. And I think streaming services, which I know there's probably been a bunch of talk about, are really interesting as well, because I really believe that that if there's good services where it's a good experience for the consumer, then that's a great thing. I'd rather people be moving into a service where artists are getting paid. Yeah, sure. Some would say that's not great, and it's the same for the labels. But I think that, you know, if we can get 100,000 people, or if we can get 1 million people or 5 million people that are signed up and subscribed to great streaming services, well, then we're going to start to be really serious, and we've got something going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right, well, before we turn it over to see if there's some questions that people might like to ask, is there a final kind of message or you know, word that you would leave people? You know, I mean, you obviously arrived to be the chairman of EMI in 2008 at a very uncertain time, not just in the music business, but in EMI's, you know, history. And you know, it was the time of the GFC. You know, yeah. Where are you? Kind of almost 5 years on, 4 years on from there.
You know, I hopefully people think that the company's in a great shape, and particularly with Aussie artists, I'm really proud of what we've done, and it is our most diverse roster. Everything from Ricky Leader to Empire of the Sun to Bob Evans and No Mercy and all that stuff in between. But I guess, yeah, I hope that, you know, for some of the people who are up the back there, maybe who are really keen to get into the industry, I just, you know, if there's anything, I just hope that I can be inspiring and say, if you're willing to work hard and ask lots of questions and follow your belief in wanting to have a career in music, that it can be done. I mean, like, hey, look at me. Went from Kmart in the suburbs to running EMI.
Via holding Alice Cooper's snake.
Oh, thank you.
That's an important part of the process.
Yeah, but and like it might sound a funny thing to say, but like we need you. We need young people who are smart and who are hungry and who want to work in music and who want to help artists and build careers, not people who are in it for all the funny stuff we're saying, but we need people who are in it for the long term and want to help artists and build careers. And please don't give up. Keep kind of pushing stuff, learning stuff, and asking questions. It can happen. It can happen for you.
I love it. I love how unconventional it all is, and you made it to the top. So please, ladies and gentlemen, Mark Poston.
Thanks, guys.
I don't have a schedule, so I'm not sure if everyone has to bail or bounce, as the young people say. These guys in the front, they probably say bounce. Man, we're going to bounce, buy some more snapbacks. I think that's a hat that you leave the sticker on. If we have time, maybe we can take some questions from the floor if there are some. Oh, the lights.
We did good.
That's scary. Pump the lights up. I don't know if there's a microphone that roams around, or you just shout out, or just tweet me and I'll read the question out. At Jabbatron is my handle. You can troll me if you want. That's fine.
I think maybe we did all right.
You covered everything.
Yeah.
I wanted someone to go, what's Brashes? Who's Alice Cooper? Wow. Is there no, that's just a scratching of the head. This is good. I like this. Is really surreal. Now we get to just watch you because the lights are on. That's really, oh, there we go. Bang. Legend. Would you just like to yell out, sir? Or that might be a lady. No, I think it's a man. Sorry. Oh, there's a mic. Awesome.
Thanks, Mark. My name's Leo Aki. I'm one of the board directors of Yumi Arts in the far north in Cairns. And look, thanks very much for your candidacy, and it's quite refreshing to hear that someone like yourself has come from a Kmart background and being there where you are. You mentioned there your family, and I'm quite interested in, like you say, your dad's here. If you had a moment to express to him where he's brought you to where you are today, what would you say to him?
I would say to him that he'd been great. He kind of put up with my drive for having to have music on almost all the time. I think that we even reached an agreement of I could go, if we were visiting family or something, that I could have the drive up if he could have the drive back. I think that he introduced me to some good stuff, like definitely early Beatles, and even a bit of like Cliff Richard and stuff. But my mum and dad are amazing, and they always just taught me to actually believe in myself and trust the process. And even though I was absolutely horrified that I left uni to go and do this full-time music lark, after a couple of years, I think that he would even admit that he came around and worked out that this was good. I think he said to me, I think if you are a parent, which I'm not, but it's a great honour that you can go to work each day and be happy and feel like you're contributing to something. So I would say to Dad, yeah, thank you very much. You're the greatest.
Thank you. Excellent.
Clearly, he's fostered some of the notion of belief, that you have in the way you approach things. He believed in you, and in turn, you're able to believe in in other people, whether it's your artists or your staff or your own ideology.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, my dad. My parents were, I guess, and somehow maybe them being like the black sheep of our family probably helped me. You know, my parents grew up in Manchester, and you know, in doing it tough in kind of post-war years and working class there, and my dad came home famously one day and got a job offer to go and work in Australia. My mum said, "No way, mate," but she soon came around, and they came over and started a whole new life, you know, with nothing really, pretty much arriving with a couple of suitcases. And, you know, sure enough, some of our whole family actually lives out in Queensland now. But maybe there's something in that definitely kind of, you know, maybe resonated with, like, taking a chance and not being afraid to kind of take a jump and see what happens.
I mean, to me, that's such a key ingredient of music in itself is a risk-taking process, and it's part of life and any, you know, artistic pursuit, and that's where the collision, I suppose, rather than a marriage of art and commerce, is, you know, I look to commercial radio and go, there's no risks. You know, they're not going to break a song because, you know, there's just too much tied up, you know, and for a lot of labels, there's too much tied up, whether it's in people's mortgages or shareholders or whatever, that, you know, you seem to have, you know, it's in your blood to take risks, not stupid risks, not like gambling risks, but, you know, calculated risks that, you know, hopefully will continue to pay off.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, that's all part of the game. That's great. Yeah.
I guess that's what musicians do. You know, they take a risk, they do something different.
Yeah.
We got a gentleman down here in the second row.
Yeah, hi, thanks, Mark, for a great, really, really enjoyable talk, and lovely to hear somebody in your position who really seems to understand the importance of music and the vast range of meanings. My name's Mike Howlett. I'm a producer. You probably may know my stuff from the 80s, but I'm just living in Brisbane now. But what I wanted to know was whether you could advise whether the modern majors sort of currently in the last probably 10, 15 years have moved towards looking at indie labels and I think in recent years to looking at things like YouTube for a number of hits. What advice you would give to a young band and managers at the moment, whether, or how your A&R department works? I mean, do you have an A&R department in that old traditional sense, or do your guys just really trawl YouTube and see who's getting the most hits? You know, is that the process now? And so in that case, should a young band try to get a good clip up, just try to make noise in that way until they get noticed by you guys, or is it still good to just send a demo in?
So interpreting that question into more of a sound grab, you know, is social media, you know, YouTube, Twitter, speaking. Facebook, how much of that is a barometer of your likelihood of you being signed on top of how good your demo is?
Well, I'm looking at that. Is that old A&R demo, you know, tradition still alive in a major like that, or do you really just look at the indies and your guys trawl social media?
Well, I think you've told me that you guys still listen to every tape or, you know, whatever gets sent in. Whatever comes across the desk at EMI will get listened to, and I can't imagine that's the case for every record label. You know, I think that's pretty astonishing. And then I imagine from there you would look at other factors. But.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so yeah, we do have an A&R department. I think we have the best one, but I would say that. And you know, probably ahead of A&R is actually a record producer, which at the time some people thought was kind of, you know, amazing or crazy. A guy called Scott Horscroft, because I thought it was just so, it made so much sense to have someone who who understood how to make a record and understood the creative process of making a record and the psychology of it too, and who could work with artists running that. And then, you know, we have 3 other really fantastic people who work in that team, you know. But they do listen to everything. There's actually no one kind of cut and paste answer for every kind of artist, you know. To be more specific about the social network thing, we don't, you know, it's not just like the one measure of things. Quite the reverse, actually. I mean, the guys are out seeing bands every night, sometimes, you know, 3, sometimes 5, whatever. So they're kind of either discovering them through just being at gigs, and word of mouth that just happens when you're in the music community and just hearing about stuff and what's hot. Stumbling on a band at a festival or kind of unexpectedly supporting another band. Or you know, maybe they come across, you know, we came across it on on YouTube, or when it was MySpace before that, or a little bit of that. But I think that the role of A&R, much like the role of the artist, has just had to evolve with everything that's happened too. As in, they have to be so much more on top of so many things. It's not just the old channel of, I guess, how it was 15 years ago, 10 years ago, of just, going to the gigs and just kind of stumbling across. They are watching what's coming through online. They're getting stuff sent to our Dropbox every day. We still get old school, CDs and demos with a letter and stuff. And, I guess because like I say, because we have integrity, everything gets listened to and gets kind of assessed. But, it's like there's a whole bunch of things, like King Cannons, who are fantastic, one of the best live bands in the country, who are playing, who we found, weren't on fire with social networks at all. They were just pardon my French, just a fucking great rock band. And like instantly, when all of us saw them, we were just like, oh my God, we got to sign this band. They're amazing. And conversely, with Ricky Lee, who, is one of the biggest pop acts at the moment, she was really interesting to us because, I guess, contradicting what I was saying before, she had come from an X Factor reality show background, but as soon as we met her, we just kind of knew that she had something special, and that she'd also, been through a whole bunch of bad stuff, kind of as an artist and with some of the people around her, and had incredible drive and could write songs and can sing the house down. And, we kind of just knew straight away that we wanted to work together. So it is that sometimes it's just instinct, and you just kind of know that you want to work together, and you trust the process and the magic. And then, sometimes, like I was saying with Jet, there's the old school circus where everyone's talking about that they're hot and everyone's in for a piece of the pie. But honestly, I'd rather, they're our least favourite situations as kind of music people, because usually that kind of circus is unappealing and driving stuff up. You either kind of believe in it and you want to work with the people because you believe in the team and you believe in the artist, or,
Or at short stack.
Or at short stack. Oh, Jabba.
Sorry. What? Oh, fair enough. Okay. Fair enough.
Felt
Thanks,
like
Sue.
a therapy session.
I knew I shouldn't have mentioned short stack shit.
It's over.
Yeah. Please, once again, thank Mark Poston, Chairman of EMI.
Thank you.